The original launch of the Nintendo Switch felt like a return to form, especially off the back of the Wii U. Over its 8 years since launch, it has become the third best-selling console, which I think in time will surpass the Nintendo DS at number 2. Why I think it's history repeating itself is Nintendo's lack of regard for consumers. Yes, it's a corporation, they make products to be bought, and Nintendo isn't a charity. An era will showcase in the future of Switch 2, there are undeniable games to be excited for, but it's what happened after the Direct that has made this launch the good, the bad, and the confusing. Hi, I'm Obsessing Again. I'm not here to review, I'm here to deep dive. You name it, I've probably got an opinion on it. It was teased in January and finally revealed in April. Mario Kart World. It's evident Nintendo milked everything out of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so seeing Mario and his assortment of friends with new skins and vehicles was essential. A playable map that is heavily influenced from Forza and the Crew isn't necessarily revolutionary, but for how starved fans have been for new content, this is a welcomed addition. New mechanics, weather systems, interesting and enticing enough to play. The robustness of the design is a major success. The larger screen for one, subsequently larger Joy-Cons, may alleviate cramping from sharing a Joy-Con. An OLED display isn't a deal breaker, but if this were to increase the overall cost significantly, I think Nintendo have done the right thing. The refined dock with an inbuilt fan is a big plus as well. For the hardware redesign and improved kickstand, Nintendo have made a very conscious effort for internal hardware. Frame rate and HDR are terms used by gaming enthusiasts, and Nintendo have never muddied themselves in those conversations because they are never been able to compete on specs. Until now. It might not be a PlayStation 5 Pro levels, 120 frame rate is maybe the biggest revelation. It doesn't support all games, but it puts this handheld in contention with something more beefy like a Steam Deck. The infamous Xbox One reveal back in 2013 made a major blunder in regards to game sharing, making it quite restrictive and worse, not being able to sell or buy second-hand games. This, along with other blunders, contributed to PlayStation single-handedly winning the console war by a landslide. I think a big takeaway from this Direct was the announcement of game sharing. One copy of the game can be shared with a group of friends on different Switch systems. For the consumers, this is a big win, and I think the trailblazer of this mentality is Hazelight Studios' own Joseph Fares, with Split Fiction and It Takes Two. The biggest surprise being from Software with The Dusk Bloods, which came out of nowhere. This isn't a studio I look for, but their reputation precedes them. This is vindicated in social media, going into a hot mess of excitement. My thoughts will be a timed exclusive, but for now, let us rejoice. It leaves an optimistic look for 2026, though I have my suspicions Nintendo has more unannounced games from their big mascots coming in that year. Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are arguably the most compelling arguments for buying a Switch. Now, while you can play the original versions on Switch 2, what makes it bad is the upgrade plan. Yes, other companies have done this for $10, and yet more than 48 hours after the showcase, no mention of the price. Why? Because they are going to charge more than $10. If they propose a $10 uplift, people would accept it as fair and in keeping with the current market, but I don't think it's the case. If it was, and it was a menial fee, why wouldn't you mention it? It's that corporate greed is creeping in pricing. The simple answer is always vote with your wallet, but Nintendo can bank on many of their disciples upgrading, and by upgrading you are inherently accepting. Game Chat, the new exciting feature, the illustrious C button. I think all of the possibilities of what it could have been is more exciting than what we got. For a console I have solely used for offline play, this is of no interest to me. I think online integration has never been a strong point of Nintendo, so while the jury is out whether the C button will be a game changer, adding chat function is about 2 game console generations old. It also had that typical sprinkling of quirkiness with the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which we can all see having as much use as the Kinect for Xbox One. The token camera accessory in gaming seems to always be underutilised on arrival and overcommitted in showcases like this. The success will be in how it's utilised by developers. If it's anything to go off from what we saw in Mario Party Jamboree TV, it's an expensive gimmick. Visually, the design is in keeping with the console itself, but it's underwhelmingly boring in design. It looks like an Amazon Basics for Zoom calling. Nintendo fans are like loyal dogs, but Nintendo fans are unlike most gamers in one particular way. Majority of media is now in downloads and streaming, but a large group of Nintendo consumers are strong supporters of physical media. The new release of Mario Kart World has been tainted with cartridges just being keys. Typically, the cartridge carries the bulk of the game when inserted. Now, some of the cartridges will exist as just a door to access the game, with the game size existing on the console. In the greater picture, it raises concerns for servers. Once they are turned off in years to come, what happens to these keys? For the traditional cartridge and on Switch 1, it's mostly unaffected. As a consumer, undoubtedly a big fail. The hot topic with any reveal is pricing. I feel the comparisons between Switch 1 and 2 pricing is mostly irrelevant, as the market in 2017 and 2025 is incomparable. If I did a video on this reveal without mentioning a price, I would be doing it a disservice. For UK pricing, I think it's fair, but for regions in America and Australia, pricing for the unit and more importantly the games isn't particularly family friendly. The pricing difference between Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza leaves more questions than answers. Are Nintendo implying Donkey Kong is a smaller scale by comparison because it's cheaper? Or is it that Mario Kart as an IP is more bankable than Donkey Kong, therefore upping the prices of no concern? I think it's a steep price as the family-friendly console.
This is Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2.
I fundamentally cannot comprehend how Nintendo can justify making the Welcome Tour a payable game. It looks like a very generic cookie-cutter tech demo you would have seen 20 years ago at your local Best Buy or GameStop. Looking at the PlayStation 5 with Astrobot shone a light on not only the power of the PlayStation 5, but the new PlayStation mascot. Subsequently, a fully fledged game, winning numerous Game of the Years in 2024. Even the former president of Nintendo America acknowledged that PlayStation almost outdid Nintendo at its own game. It's a glaring blunder from Nintendo, especially from the company that made the most iconic tech demo in Wii Sports. That single-handedly convinced millions of grandmas to try virtual bowling and tennis in their living room many holidays ago. The innovation in the mouse function, which really limits you to only playing when in tabletop mode, isn't something that would compel me to buy. This might be a niche for Metroid players or an obscure PC port for a traditional mouse and keyboard game. We saw it shown in Drag and Drive or Drag X and Drive, a game with quite a drab colour palette and uneventful gameplay. Nintendo hopes it's their own answer for Rocket League, but will likely live as long as Destruction All-Stars. For most setups, this will be forgotten. The Nintendo Switch 2 showcase is like a pendulum. For the good comes the bad. A new Mario Kart, brilliant. That's considerably more expensive. Oh, and the physical cartridge isn't really a cartridge. Ooh, but unfortunately, corporate greed is casting a shadow over what was a decent showcase. I don't think the Switch 2 needs to be a revolutionary device, it needs to be an evolution from Switch 1. With Xbox passing their games over to PlayStation and PlayStation to PC, Nintendo have something very special. A collection of exclusive games spanning over decades, and a roster of main characters and side characters that can solely sell games in the millions. If they focus on good quality games, the Switch 2 will be a success. Thank you for letting me obsess again.